My son came to me in tears, saying his wife kicked him out, but he was the one who told her to leave first. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I woke to the sound of the doorbell. Sharp, insistent 3 short rings in succession. The clock on my nightstand read 5 minutes to midnight. My heart lurched. No one rings doorbells at midnight with good news. I grabbed my robe, my fingers fumbling with the tie as I hurried down the hallway. Through the frosted glass of the front door, I could make out a silhouette, tall, hunched, holding something. My stomach tightened. When I opened the door, the rain was coming down in sheets, drumming against the porch roof like 1,000 fingers tapping. And there he stood, my son, 32 years old, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, but in that moment, he looked like he was 7 again. His eyes were red and swollen, his hair plastered to his forehead, and he clutched a duffel bag against his chest like a shield. Water dripped from his jacket onto the welcome mat, forming a small puddle that spread toward my slippers. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked on that single syllable. I didn't ask questions. I didn't demand explanations. I simply stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in, sweetheart, come in." He stumbled past me, leaving wet footprints on the hardwood floor dark ovals that glistened in the dim light from the hallway lamp. I closed the door against the storm and turned to find him standing in the middle of my living room, still holding that bag, still dripping, looking lost. "Let me get you a towel," I said, but he shook his head. "She kicked me out." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom, she kicked me out." The words hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, his wife of 4 years, the woman I'd welcomed into our family with open arms, the woman who laughed at his terrible jokes and held his hand during my husband's funeral. Oh, honey. I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around him, duffel bag and all. He was trembling. Or maybe I was. "It's okay. You're home now. You're safe." He dropped the bag and hugged me back, and I felt his whole body shake with silent sobs. I held him the way I used to when he was small, when he'd fallen off his bike, when the kids at school had been cruel, when his father had raised his voice too loud and too long. My boy. My baby. I'd always been able to fix things for him then. We sat in the kitchen while the kettle boiled. I'd given him dry clothes, an old sweatshirt of his that I'd kept in the closet, sweatpants that were slightly too short now. He sat at the table with his hands wrapped around a mug of tea, staring into it like it held answers. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. I'd always meant to replace it with a quieter one, but I'd gotten used to the sound. Tonight, though, it seemed deafening in the silence between us. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked gently. He shook his head, then nodded, then shrugged. "I don't know. I don't even know what happened, Mom. One minute everything was fine, and the next she was screaming at me to get out, said she couldn't stand to look at me anymore." My chest ached. "What were you fighting about?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." He ran his hand through his damp hair. "She's been so angry lately. Nothing I do is right. I work too much. I don't help enough at home. I don't listen when she talks. Tonight she just exploded. Told me to leave and not come back." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. His fingers were cold. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." "I didn't know where else to go," he said, and his eyes filled with tears again. "I'm sorry for showing up like this. Don't you dare apologize." I squeezed harder. "This is your home. You can always come here." He nodded and wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. The gesture was so familiar, it made my throat tight. He'd done the exact same thing when he was 8, sitting at this very table after his goldfish died. I'd told him then that everything would be okay, that the hurt would fade, that he was loved. I wanted to tell him the same thing now, but the words felt heavier. Marriage wasn't a goldfish, and he wasn't 8 anymore. "Let me make up the guest room," I said, standing. "You need sleep. Things always look clearer in the morning." He nodded again, but he didn't move. He just sat there, staring at his tea, looking like the world had ended. I paused in the doorway. "Daniel?" He looked up. "It's going to be okay," I said. I wanted so badly to believe it. The next morning, I woke early out of habit. The house was quiet except for the coffee maker gurgling in the kitchen. I'd set it on a timer the night before, forgetting Daniel was here. Now the smell of fresh coffee filled the air, incongruously cheerful. I found him already awake, sitting on the couch in the living room, scrolling through his phone with a deep frown. He'd been crying again. I could tell from his eyes. "Morning," I said softly. He looked up and quickly wiped his face. "Morning, Mom. Thanks for letting me crash here." "You're not crashing. You're staying as long as you need." I poured 2 cups of coffee and handed him one. "Have you talked to Sarah?" His jaw tightened. "She won't answer my calls. I've tried 6 times. She just..." "Nothing. Maybe she needs some space." "She told me to leave." His voice rose, sharp with frustration. "She's the one who kicked me out, and now she won't even talk to me?" I sat down beside him carefully. "Honey, I know you're hurting, but maybe I just don't understand what I did wrong." He set his phone down with more force than necessary. "I've been trying so hard, working overtime to save up for the house she wants, taking care of things around our apartment. And this is what I get?" There was something in his tone, something bitter and sharp that didn't quite fit. But I pushed the thought away. He was in pain. People say things they don't mean when they're in pain. "Marriage is hard," I said. "Your father and I had our struggles too." He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a scoff. "Yeah, I remember." We sat in silence after that, drinking our coffee, the morning light gradually filling the room. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving everything washed clean and gray. He stayed. First for 1 day, then 2, then 3. I didn't mind. I told myself I didn't mind. It was nice in a way, having someone in the house again. I'd been alone for 2 years since Frank passed, and the silence had become its own presence, heavy and oppressive. Daniel worked from my dining room table during the day, headphones on, typing away at his laptop. I could hear the muffled sound of video calls, his professional voice so different from the broken one I'd heard that first night. In the evenings, we had dinner together. I cooked the things he'd loved as a child: meatloaf, roasted chicken, spaghetti with too much garlic. He ate gratefully, complimenting every meal, but I noticed he never finished his plate. He'd push the food around, take a few bites, then set his fork down. "Not hungry?" I asked on the 4th night. "Just stressed," he said. "Sorry, Mom, it's really good." We'd talk, or rather, I'd ask questions and he'd give vague answers. How was Sarah? Not answering. Had he tried to see her? She wasn't home when he drove by. What about counseling? Maybe, eventually, if she'd talk to him. Always, it came back to what Sarah had done. How she'd kicked him out. How she wouldn't communicate. How she was being unfair. I listened, made sympathetic noises, offered what comfort I could. But something nagged at me. A small voice in the back of my mind that grew louder each day. Why wouldn't Sarah talk to him? They'd always seemed so good at communicating. I'd seen them work through disagreements before, calmly, rationally, with respect. What had really happened that night? On the 5th day, I ran into Margaret Chen at the grocery store. Margaret lived 2 doors down from Daniel and Sarah. We'd chatted at neighborhood barbecues, exchanged pleasantries over mailboxes. "Oh, honey," she said when she saw me in the produce aisle. "I heard about Daniel and Sarah. How awful." I picked up a bag of apples I didn't need. "Yes, it's been difficult." "Sarah looked just devastated when I saw her yesterday," Margaret continued, lowering her voice even though we were alone among the lettuce. "Poor thing. She was taking boxes to her car. I think she's staying with her sister for a while." I froze, my hand on an apple. Sarah's the one who left. Margaret blinked. Well, yes. I saw her loading up 3 days ago. Daniel's still at the apartment. The apple in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. Are you all right, Linda? Margaret peered at me with concern. Fine, I managed. Just tired. Take care, Margaret. I left my cart in the aisle and walked to my car on autopilot. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. Sarah was the one who left. Sarah was staying with her sister. Daniel was still at the apartment, but he'd come to my door with a duffel bag soaking wet, saying she'd kicked him out. The pieces didn't fit. I drove home slowly, my mind racing. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they'd both left. Maybe Daniel had left first. Then Sarah packed up and left too, and he'd come to me after trying to go back. But why hadn't he mentioned any of that? When I got home, Daniel was in the living room, video game controller in hand, playing something on my television. The sound of gunfire and explosions filled the room. Hey, Mom, he said without looking away from the screen. How was the store? I forgot what I needed, I said. Daniel, can we talk for a minute? Sure, just let me finish this level. I waited, standing in the doorway, watching him play. He was good at it, his fingers flying over the buttons, his eyes tracking the action on screen. He'd always been good at games, good at focusing on what was right in front of him. Maybe too good at it. The level ended. He paused the game and looked up at me. What's up? I sat down in the armchair across from him. I ran into Margaret Chen today. Something flickered across his face. Too quick to read. Oh, yeah? She mentioned seeing Sarah. Said she was packing boxes, going to stay with her sister. Yeah, that sounds like something she'd do, he said casually. Running away instead of dealing with things. Margaret said she saw Sarah packing 3 days ago, but you came here 5 days ago. The silence stretched between us. On the TV screen, the game sat frozen mid-explosion, pixels of fire suspended in time. So? Daniel said finally. So Sarah couldn't have kicked you out if she wasn't home. He stood up abruptly. I don't want to talk about this. Daniel, I said I don't want to talk about it. His voice rose, echoing off the walls. Why are you interrogating me? I thought you were on my side. I am on your side, I said, keeping my voice calm. I'm your mother. I'll always be on your side. But I need to understand what really happened. He grabbed his phone from the coffee table. I need some air. Daniel, wait. But he was already heading for the door. It slammed behind him, rattling the pictures on the wall. I sat in the armchair, listening to his car start, listening to him drive away, and feeling like I'd just failed some kind of test. He came back 3 hours later, calmer. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes that didn't need washing, just to keep my hands busy. Mom, he said from the doorway. I'm sorry I yelled. I dried my hands on a towel. It's okay. No, it's not. You're letting me stay here, and He trailed off, ran his hand through his hair. This whole thing is just really hard. I know, sweetheart. He sat down at the table. After a moment, I joined him. Can you tell me what happened? I asked. The truth this time? He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. Finally, he spoke. We had a fight, a bad one. She was going on and on about how I never listened to her, how I prioritize work over her, how I don't make her feel valued, and I snapped. I told her if she was so unhappy, maybe she should leave. My heart sank. Oh, Daniel. I didn't mean it, he said quickly. I was just angry, but she took me seriously. She started packing right then. And I didn't stop her because I thought she'd cool down, realize she was overreacting, and come back. But she didn't. And then? And then I couldn't stand being in that apartment alone. Every room reminded me of her. So I packed a bag and came here. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I didn't lie, Mom. She did kick me out by leaving. Same thing. It's not the same thing, I said softly. Why does it matter? His voice took on that sharp edge again. The result is the same. We're separated. I'm here. She won't talk to me. It matters because you told her to leave, Daniel. You said the words first. I was angry. People say things when they're angry. Yes, I agreed. They do. But that doesn't erase what was said. He stood up, pacing. So what? I'm the bad guy now? I'm the villain in this story? Nobody's a villain, I said. But you're not a victim either. The words hung in the air between us. I watched his face cycle through emotions, anger, hurt, defensiveness, and finally, something that looked like shame. I didn't mean to hurt her, he said quietly. I know. I love her. I know that too. He sank back into the chair, his head in his hands. I don't know how to fix this. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but I held back. Did you apologize? She won't answer my calls. Have you tried anything other than calling? He looked up. Like what? Like going to her sister's house, like writing her a letter, like doing any of the 1,000 things people do when they've hurt someone they love and need to make it right. What if she doesn't want to hear it? Then at least you tried. He slumped in his chair, looking young and lost. What if I've ruined everything? Then you learn from it, I said, and you do better next time. But you don't get to learn anything if you keep running from what happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my son. Thinking about the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who believed I could fix anything with a kiss and a Band-Aid. When had he learned to run instead of face things? I thought about Frank, my late husband. He'd been a good man in many ways, a provider, a father who showed up to school plays and soccer games. But he'd also been a man who avoided conflict, who'd give the silent treatment instead of talking things through, who'd throw himself into work when home felt too complicated. I'd loved him anyway, but I'd also resented him for it, in ways I'd never fully articulated even to myself. Had Daniel learned that from his father? Or worse, had he learned it from me? From watching me smooth things over, make excuses, accept apologies that came without real change? The thought kept me awake until dawn. The next morning, I found Daniel already up, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop. He looked like he hadn't slept either. I'm going to her sister's house, he said without preamble. You're right. I need to talk to her face to face. Relief flooded through me. That's good, honey. I don't know what I'm going to say. Start with I'm sorry, I suggested. And mean it. He nodded, closed his laptop. What if she won't see me? Then you leave a letter. You keep trying. You don't give up. I poured him coffee. But Daniel, you need to understand something. An apology isn't magic. It doesn't erase what happened. She might not forgive you right away. She might need time. I know. And if she does forgive you, you have to actually change. You can't just say you'll listen better and prioritize her more. You have to do it, every day, even when it's hard. He took the coffee cup, held it in both hands. Did Dad ever do that? Change for you? The question surprised me. I thought about lying, giving him the sanitized version. But he needed the truth. No, I said. He didn't. He tried sometimes. But he always slipped back into old patterns. And I let him because I didn't want to fight anymore. I chose peace over honesty. I sat down across from him. Don't make our mistakes, Daniel. Don't let your marriage become what ours was. His eyes glistened. I don't want to lose her, Mom. Then fight for her, but fight fair. Fight honest. He nodded and stood up. I'm going to shower and head over there. I watched him leave the kitchen, and for the first time in days, I felt something like hope. He was gone for 4 hours. I tried to distract myself with chores, with television, with a book I couldn't concentrate on. Every car that passed made me look up. Finally, I heard his key in the door. He came in slowly, his face unreadable. I stood up from the couch, my heart pounding. How did it go? I asked. She talked to me, he said. She actually talked to me. And I apologized. Really apologized. Not just, I'm sorry you're upset, but I'm sorry for what I said, for telling you to leave, for not listening when you tried to tell me you were unhappy. He sat down heavily on the couch. She cried, I cried. Her sister made us tea and very pointedly did not leave us alone. Despite everything, I smiled. Sarah's sister is smart. She told me. He paused, swallowed hard. She told me she's been unhappy for over a year, that she's tried to talk to me about it so many times, but I always change the subject, or minimize her feelings, or turn it back on her somehow. She said that night, when I told her to leave, it felt like confirmation that I didn't really want her there anyway. Oh, Daniel. I didn't realize, he said, and his voice broke. Mom, I swear I didn't realize. I thought we were fine. I thought she was just being needy or overly sensitive But we weren't fine. We haven't been fine for a long time. I sat down beside him and took his hand. What happens now? She said she needs time. She's not ready to come home yet. But she agreed to go to counseling with me. We have our first appointment next week. That's good. That's really good. I can't stay here, Mom. I need to go back to the apartment, prove to her that I can handle things on my own, that I'm not just running away again. He looked at me. But thank you. For taking me in. For calling me out on my shit. For not just telling me what I wanted to hear. I squeezed his hand. That's what mothers are for. I don't think all mothers do that, he said quietly. I think a lot of them just enable. Keep covering for their kids, even when their kids are grown and making mistakes. I might have done that once, I admitted. When you were younger. I protected you from everything, including consequences. Maybe I did you a disservice. You did your best. So did you, I said. And now, you're going to do better. He left the next morning. I helped him carry his duffel bag to the car. The same one he'd arrived with, though it seemed lighter somehow. Or maybe he seemed lighter. Call me, I said. Let me know how things go. I will. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. I watched him drive away, standing on the porch in my robe and slippers, and I felt that peculiar mix of emotions that comes with being a mother. Pride and worry, hope and fear, love and the ache of letting go. The house seemed very quiet after he left, empty in a different way than before. I went inside, closed the door, and started making coffee. On the kitchen table, I found a note in his handwriting. Mom, thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth. I'll try to make you proud. D. I sat down and cried, holding that note in both hands. Not sad tears exactly, not happy tears either. Just the tears of a mother who'd done something hard and necessary and painful, and hoped it would be enough. 2 months later, Daniel and Sarah came over for dinner together. It was the first time I'd seen them since that night he'd shown up on my doorstep. They held hands across my kitchen table. Not in the easy, unconscious way of couples who've never struggled, but in the deliberate, purposeful way of people actively choosing each other. We're working on things, Sarah told me over dessert. It's not easy. There are still hard days. But we're talking through them, Daniel added. Actually talking, not avoiding or deflecting or running away. Sarah smiled at him, and it was a real smile. Warm. Maybe a little tired, but genuine. We wanted to thank you, Sarah said to me. Daniel told me what you said to him, about not being a victim, about taking responsibility. I just told him the truth, I said, a truth he needed to hear. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. A lot of people would have just taken his side automatically. Would have helped him paint me as the bad guy. I thought about all the times I'd wanted to do exactly that. All the times I'd bitten my tongue to keep from defending my son against accusations that were, ultimately, fair. He's my son, I said. I'll always love him, but that doesn't mean I'll always agree with him. Daniel's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm really lucky, he said, to have both of you. They left around 9, promising to come back for Sunday dinner next week. I waved from the porch as they pulled away, and then I went back inside to my quiet house. I washed the dishes, listening to the clock tick, put away the leftovers, wiped down the counters, and then I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, in the same spot where I'd sat with my son all those weeks ago, and I thought about love. Motherhood is such a strange thing. When they're young, you protect them from everything, from sharp corners and hot stoves and mean kids at school. You kiss their bruises and tell them everything will be okay, and you believe it because you can make it true. But then they grow up, and the hurts are bigger. The mistakes are more complicated. The bruises are on their souls instead of their knees, and you have to figure out a new way to love them, not by protecting them from consequences, not by shielding them from their own mistakes, but by standing beside them and saying, "This is hard, and you did this, and now you have to fix it." By loving them enough to let them be uncomfortable, to let them fail, to let them struggle toward becoming the people they need to be. It's not easy. It goes against every instinct that's been honed by years of bandaging scraped knees and chasing away nightmares. But it's necessary. And maybe, if you're lucky, they'll understand someday. They'll see that the hardest love is also the truest love. The love that sees them clearly flaws and all and says, "I believe you can do better." I finished my tea and rinsed the cup, and as I turned off the kitchen light, I felt something settle in my chest. Something like peace. My son had come to me in tears, asking for shelter from a storm he'd created, and I'd given him shelter. But I'd also given him something more important. I'd given him the truth. And in the end, maybe that's all any of us can do for the people we love. Tell them the truth, hold them accountable, believe in their capacity to grow, and hope that it's enough.